Hi, my name is Ines, and I'm going to talk about my research paper. I did my research on a cultural group known as Maasai. The Maasai people are very small in numbers. There's only approximately 1 million of them that are known. They're mainly found in Kenya, but also some of them are in Tanzania. Both of these countries are in the East African region. They speak a language known as Ma, and they also lead a semi-nomadic life. So they mainly live in the countryside, and raising their cattle is a big part of the community. The Maasai people are also known to be a patriarchal society, which is um, also seen as we see their dances and the characteristics that they fulfill. One of the reasons why I decided to do my research on the Maasai people, it's because that I've actually seen them. The first time that I saw them was when I lived in Congo, and I also saw them when I lived in Ethiopia. They would come around in the city to sell their beautiful handmade jewelries. So this was a great opportunity for me to be able to do some extensive research and learn more about their cultures, but specifically the dance. The Maasai are very well known with their dance known as jumping dance, but also known locally as adumu. This dance is performed especially at a ceremony called Unoto. Unoto is a rite of passage ceremony, and this rite of passage is mainly for the young men in the community. This is a day where all the young men from all the clans get together for a rite of passage. And the reason why I say that all the young men get together is because there is different ages, groups of ages that do this. And the reason why they celebrate this as a rite of passage, it could be because the young men are getting circumcised, or they're taking their first drinks, or it's a way for them to become independent. And that is by not relying on their mothers. They just become men on themselves. This is a ceremony specifically held for young men only. Women may join at the end, but at the beginning, as they start, it is for the men only. And the dance comes in at first. They are older men in the community get together in a circle and they jump. While they jump, it starts slowly, but they continue to jump as high as they can. This jumping is just not jumping; it has rhythm to it, and mainly most of the time there is only one or two people in the circle that are jumping. The young men do not join in unless they are invited, and once they're invited in the circle, that's a big part of their rite of passage too. That's a way of welcoming them to manhood. And the young men jump as high as they can to impress the elders. They also do that once women come out to try to impress them and see if they can find themselves a girlfriend. The reason why this ceremony represents their culture is because, as I mentioned before, the Maasai people are a very patriarchal society. So for them, it's for the men to kind of affirm their manhood and their leadership in society, and to pass that to the young men too, so that that can continue to live in their community. Another reason why they do this, though, it's a way for them to get together as a community. They're a very collectivistic society. Nobody lives as an individual when it comes to this society. So it's a way for them to get together and celebrate the young men in the community and celebrate what they have together as a community. Besides that, under the Maasai tribe, there is a few clans. So this is one of the few times where all the clans get together and they just all get to enjoy what they have and have a good time dancing. So from our class discussion, the Maasai dance, the jumping dance, especially you note one for the rite of passage for young men, I would classify it as a folk dance form. And the reason why I would say that it fulfills that because it its function is to conserve the values of the community, which is to lead young men into the leadership, which is very expected of them. And the other reason too is because the jumping dance fulfills a lot of these the characteristic that we find in folk dance forms. One of them, given that the dancers are not professional, it's everybody in the community is invited to do that. And they also wear what you would call costumes, but it's their traditional clothes. They just basically just wrap it around themselves, and it's very colorful. And the other reason is because there is segregation between women and men. So it kind of shows where everybody stands in the society. And the movements are not as symbolic gestures, they're just the movements that they do for the dance. And as they dance, also there is kind of an individual innovation. Even though they're supposed to dance, there's this innovation of wanting to jump as high as they can and to see who could come down fast and who is better. And the other thing is that there is music involved, the singing of the people in the circle. And another big reason why this is a folk dance form is because there is rhythm. Rhythm is a big part of the jumping dance. It's not just jumping around like I mentioned before, and the rhythm that comes with the songs and the drums that are involved with the jumping dance helps it also fulfill the characteristic of what we would call folk dance form. Another question that I wanted to answer is the contemporary values of the community I live in and how these are presented in dance. Even though I live in Utah right now, a big part of the community of my community is still the African community. That's where especially I see the dances. I haven't really explored the dancing culture in Utah, so I guess I still associate myself with that community and the dancing. And in regards of our contemporary values, I guess one thing is that we celebrate each other. We celebrate milestones, and this is especially reflected in dances when it comes to things like graduation celebration, but mostly at weddings. If you go to an African wedding, it's very different. There's a lot of dancing involved, and one would actually say too much of it. There is traditional, but also for young people like us, they still allow us to introduce in there the non-traditional dances that we've learned from other cultures. So compared to the Maasai community and my community, I would say that we are totally different. I don't live a semi-nomadic life, and on top of that, I don't live in a patriarchal society community. So when my community does all this dancing, I still can be part of it. Even though the one thing I would say is that, especially in the cultural dance called Inhore, the way the men dance and the way the women dance is a little different. Like the moves that the women do and the moves that the men do, but still the men are not the only ones dancing. The women get to dance as well. So that is one big difference between my community and the Maasai community. One thing that we have in common maybe is that we're a collectivistic society or community. So when there is a celebration or when there is dancing, everybody gets to participate, and it's a huge thing for a community. It's not something that just a family does. Everybody gets to be part of it. So that's one thing during my research that I realized is very common to their community and my community. Thank you. For my close analysis movement, to start with the body, When the Maasai people are performing the jumping dance, depending if it's a rite of passage or marriage, one thing that is consistent is the jumping. They jump as high as they can, but also they use the rest of their bodies because as they perform, they always have an arrow or a stick that they use to jump with. So, and as they calm down, they also shake their heads. So, and you can see that their torso is working as well, and their shoulders shake a lot as they come down. So, that's one big part of their dancing when it comes to the body. From the description, I think you can tell that this dance does require a lot of energy. When they're starting to dance at the beginning, it's more or less a little bit loose. There is no tension. But as they go by and as they try to impress each other, it becomes really tense. There is this energy of rising and sinking as they come up and down. They tend to go up with a lot of energy, but then as they sink or come down, it's more of a release. So they go a little more slowly and softer than when they're going up. To talk a little bit about space, they dance towards the audience most of the time when there is one person in the circle. They jump, and as they come down, they're mainly looking at their audience. But sometimes also when they're jumping, there is a little bit of competition that goes on to see who jumps as high as they can. So there may be two people in the circle, and those people will just face each other as they go high, and as they come down, they're facing each other. The Maasai jumping dance also has a lot of rhythm. This jumping is just not random. There is music. Sometimes there are people singing, those who are not in the circle jumping, those who are in the outside. But also it includes drums as well. So they'll follow the rhythm of the drums. They're very focused when they're performing because they want to make sure that they're safe, but this is also a big part of their culture, so they want to be as great as they can while performing, so they keep a focus on their jumping. So these are the 10 movements that I did for my collage. It's the things that I like to do in my free time. And I did reading, smiling, translating, cleaning, cooking, swimming, helping, also shopping, traveling, and those are the 10 movements. So to kind of merge my collage with the cultural group that I did research on, I tried to include some of the things with 3 of my movements. One of them being that the Maasai tribe has a lot of rhythm when it comes to their dancing. So instead of just reading, it could be reading, 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 reading. Then another one is that they have a lot of energy when they are dancing. So I thought I could include that with the smiling instead of just doing smiling. Just say smiling, smiling, smiling. And then the last one that they do with especially with their dances is the jumping as they go up. They go up and then come down, and I thought that would go well with my helping. So I would just have a good rhythm going up and come down slowly. So I'll just help, then come slowly. Help you go up, and then slowly.